Between fortune and solitude, the story of a millionaire, abandoned by his family and what he did with his inheritance. In the heart of a bustling city, there stood a massive mansion, surrounded by high walls and a beautifully maintained garden. Inside lived Vander, a wealthy and respected man known for building a great fortune through hard work and determination. However, despite his fame and riches, few knew what truly lay behind the cold walls of that house. The mansion, though beautiful and luxurious, was a place devoid of joy. Vander, who possessed everything money could buy, felt profoundly alone. His wife, Gloria, was a stunning woman, but her charm did not translate into love. Gloria surrounded herself with friends who only sought to impress others, spending more time on her image and status than caring for her husband or the health of their marriage. The couple's children, Luca and Lavinia, grew up surrounded by privilege, becoming as cold as their mother. Rather than being by their father's side, they were consumed by their social media presence and lavish events. To them, Vander was merely the man who funded their whims and provided a life of comfort. They showed little regard for the values of respect and honesty that their father tried to instill. Deep down, they viewed him as an endless source of wealth. Among the many employees in that mansion was a special woman, a housekeeper who had worked for the family for many years. Simple and kind-hearted, she saw Vander in a different light. To her, he was more than just an employer. Vander always treated her with respect, and she admired the gentleman who, despite his vast riches, never looked down on her. Over time, this housekeeper developed a genuine affection for the millionaire, recognizing the sadness he carried and the distant way his own family treated him. Vander was aware that his family did not truly care for him. He noted how Gloria's smiles were forced and how his children's words were cold and calculated. He understood that, to them, he was nothing more than a source of luxury and wealth. This realization deeply hurt him, creating a significant void in his heart, as those who should have been his closest companions only sought the benefits he could provide. However, the housekeeper offered Vander a bit of solace. In small gestures, like carefully preparing tea or offering a kind word, she showed a level of care he found nowhere else in his family. These simple acts became invaluable to him, like a balm for his lonely heart. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day, as if Katerina were the only bridge connecting him to what remained of his humanity. With her constant presence and simple gestures, she made him remember a world where people cared for one another for who they truly were, not for what they owned. Beside her, Vander felt a sense of peace, as if he were returning to a time when life was simpler, and love still had a place in his home. However, as the days went by, his body began to show increasingly evident signs that something was wrong. Vander, who had always been a man of strength and determination, started to notice that the simplest tasks required much more effort than before. A persistent weakness accompanied him, and fatigue seemed to never leave him, like a relentless shadow. At first, he ignored these signs, believing they were merely reflections of stress and the weight of the responsibilities he had always carried. However, as these symptoms worsened, he decided it was time to seek medical help. The confirmation came during a routine exam. The illness was serious and progressive. The news hit him hard, like an unavoidable blow. He, who had dedicated his life to building his empire, was now faced with something that not even all his wealth could solve. He felt shaken and, in search of support, shared the news with his family, hoping to find some compassion there. However, the response was cold and insensitive. Gloria, his wife, merely listened without showing any emotion or offering a word of comfort. His children, upon hearing the news, seemed eager to resume their commitments, as if their father's illness were just another nuisance that could interfere with their plans. The disappointment was painful. Vander, who had always given everything for those he loved most, expected that in this moment of vulnerability, he would be met with care and support. Instead, he found only emptiness and indifference. In his sadness, he began to revisit memories of his life. He recalled the early days of his marriage to Gloria, when they lived in a simple, modest house, dreaming together of a better future. He thought of Luca when he was just a little boy, with his clumsy attempts to learn how to ride a bike. He remembered spending entire afternoons holding the seat of the bike to give his son the confidence he needed. He felt the warmth of that afternoon again, the joy he had when he finally saw Luca pedaling on his own. He also remembered Lavinia, with her long curls and sweet demeanor, who was afraid of the dark and could only sleep after he told her a story. These memories now haunted him. He wondered where everything had gone wrong. How, in the midst of all his efforts to provide them with a comfortable life, had he failed to cultivate respect, empathy, and love? He felt trapped, alone, distant from the family that had once been his reason for living. However, amidst this darkness, Katerina, the maid, was the only one who seemed to see his suffering. Even in silence, she showed her care in every gesture. When fever struck him, she was there, ready to tend to him. When he spent sleepless nights, she prepared tea and sat by his side, as if her presence could ease his pain. Each of her acts of kindness, each gesture, became a comfort, a testament that there were still people who saw him beyond his wealth. Gradually, Vander began to realize that, in this dark time, it was she, Katerina, who offered him the love and support he had long sought. The conversations with Katerina became the highlight of his days. With her, Vander found something that seemed long lost, a genuine friendship marked by deep understanding and without judgment. As his health declined and loneliness became ever more present, he felt grateful to have someone by his side who not only cared for him, but truly saw him as a person. In each dialogue, Vander perceived the depth of Katerina's character. She listened without haste, absorbing the stories of the sacrifices and renunciations he had made to get where he was. By sharing her own life, she revealed the challenges she faced as a mother, the sleepless nights, and the hard work to see her children grow up healthy and educated, each following their own path. The contrast was striking. While he had used his fortune to provide his family with material comfort, Katerina had given everything of herself in a simple and selfless way to offer her children values and education with the little she had. These revelations deeply touched Vander's heart. For the first time, he saw how respect, loyalty, and affection were cultivated authentically, without the presence of luxury or superficial interests. Katerina had no possessions, but she was rich in virtues that he, with all his wealth, had never been able to attain for himself. With every word she spoke, Vander realized something he had never fully understood. True wealth lay not in possessions, but in relationships and the love that was sown from the heart. From that moment on, Vander began to cherish every moment with Katerina, grateful for that last and genuine bond of friendship and understanding. She was his only reason to hold on to hope, to believe there was still a reason to fight, a living reminder that, despite everything, there was always room for love and forgiveness. Beside Katerina, Vander felt for the first time a true acceptance. There were no demands or hidden interests, just a sincere friendship blossoming without expectations. In this environment of understanding and kindness, the millionaire began to reconsider his own legacy. The idea of being remembered not for what he possessed, but for the impact he could leave on the lives of those who truly cared, began to take root in Vander's heart. Observing Katerina's dedication and selflessness, he felt inspired. For the first time, a genuine desire to do something meaningful emerged within him. He imagined how he could repay the unconditional support, affection, and patience she offered him every day. This thought accompanied him, filling him with purpose. Although he didn't have a defined plan yet, he knew that by her side, he could find a new way to give meaning to his remaining days. As time passed, his health deteriorated rapidly. Movement became a challenge, and often he could barely get out of bed. The pain was intense, a constant reminder that his time was running out. Yet as he faced this suffering, the absence and coldness of his own family became increasingly evident. His children, when they did show up, were brief and distant. Their visits focused not on their father's health, but on what he would leave behind after his departure. Conversations revolved around assets, estates, and businesses, as if his life was just another transaction to be managed. Gloria, his wife, seemed distant, increasingly immersed in her social life, travel, and prestigious events. When she eventually was home, she treated Vander with a disconcerting coldness, as if she were already mourning the fortune she imagined would be hers. In their rare encounters, the glances exchanged were filled with barely concealed impatience, as if silently expressing, "Why are you taking so long to leave?" These attitudes, which once saddened him, now simply revealed the truth about the relationships he had built throughout his life. The love, respect, and compassion he so desperately sought in his family were, in fact, present in the simple and unpretentious company of Katerina. She stood by him without expecting anything in return, offering him comfort and dignity when he needed it most. As he reflected on Katerina's dedication and loyalty, Vander felt touched and intrigued by the way she viewed life, even with all the difficulties she faced. In his heart, he knew that this woman, who had never had what he had, was the true definition of wealth and nobility. He began to see her as an example and perhaps the only chance for redemption he had left in his final days. One afternoon, while adjusting Vander's pillows to make him more comfortable, Katerina suddenly burst out laughing while recalling a recent incident. Curious, he asked what had happened, and she, still chuckling, began to tell him. "Oh, doctor, it was one of those days. You know when everything that can go wrong really does?" she said, struggling to contain her laughter. "I left here in the late afternoon, and as soon as I passed through the gate, a downpour hit. There was no way around it, right? I opened my umbrella, but the wind was so strong that the poor thing turned inside out, all the ribs bent, and there I was in the middle of the street, completely soaked, holding that bizarre umbrella." Vander, laughing at the situation, remarked, "Katerina, it looks like a scene from a comedy. And you still tried to use the umbrella?" "I know," she replied, chuckling. "I thought I could still save the poor thing, but the wind didn't give me a chance. When I got off the bus, I was already drenched. My makeup was a mess. I looked like I'd been run over. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I tried to step up onto the sidewalk near my house and my sandal broke. Doctor, I just needed a lightning bolt to complete the disaster." Vander held back his laughter, shaking his head. "So what did you do after that?" "Oh, I just kept going, right? Limping, dragging the remains of my sandal, holding that crooked umbrella like it was a flag of defeat, water dripping down my hair, and I was trying to hold back my laughter so I wouldn't scare anyone on the street. Doctor, when I got home and looked in the mirror, I didn't even recognize myself." This moment brought a lightness to both their days, and Vander couldn't help but laugh at how she managed to turn a series of misfortunes into something fun. That simplicity and Katerina's easy laughter brightened his difficult days, and it was in that moment he realized how much she meant to him. She continued to be by his side, caring for him with patience and tenderness, not minding the gravity of the situation or the fatigue that daily life brought. She made it a point to be present, helping him with everything he needed, and that was what truly kept him steady. No matter how hard it might seem, it was during this time that he had the most genuine fun, as he didn't have to maintain a facade, didn't have to choose his words carefully in conversation, and felt no shame in crying. One particularly tough night while she was helping him settle in for sleep, he, in a near whisper, thanked her for everything she had been doing. "You're not just my caregiver," he said with teary eyes. "You're the only family I have." The maid, touched, held his hand gently and replied, "You're a good person, a just man. It's a privilege to be by your side." Her simple words, filled with sincerity, deeply moved him, filling the void left by the lack of love from his own family. For her, the situation became increasingly painful to witness. She knew he didn't deserve the disregard from his children or the indifference from his wife. She did everything in her power to make his final days more comfortable, fearing that he would depart feeling abandoned. This motivated her to dedicate herself even more, to be by his side in every moment, ensuring he wouldn't face the end completely alone. For him, each gesture from the maid made the true value of love and loyalty increasingly clear. It was a painful and stark contrast to his own family, who treated him like a shadow, while she, a humble person, devoted herself to him with all her heart. Amid these thoughts, he made a definitive decision. He knew what he wanted to do with his legacy, and more importantly, he knew to whom he wanted to leave everything he had built. This choice not only relieved him, but filled him with a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. He finally understood the true meaning of affection and gratitude, and he was willing to do justice to the woman who had given him everything his family had never offered: humanity and genuine love. The millionaire, increasingly frail, knew that time was short. In the last days of his life, he summoned his trusted lawyer to have his final wishes recorded. The news of the lawyer's presence in the mansion quickly reached the ears of his wife and children, awakening an unexpected concern. They knew an important decision was to be made, and finally, they expressed a genuine interest, but only for financial reasons. His wife entered the room, surrounded by their children, insisting on knowing the content of the conversation with the lawyer. Her words, though wrapped in apparent worry, betrayed an anxiety about what would become of the vast fortune. He observed their expressions with a sense of bitterness. Once again, he saw their lack of humanity, and how, for them, money was the only reason to be by his side. With a firm, albeit weakened voice, he replied, "You will know my decision at the right moment. However, I want you to understand that it wasn't easy for me, and that it reflects the reality you have shown me in recent years." His wife shot him a cold glance, unable to hide her displeasure and frustration. The children exchanged suspicious looks, questioning what he meant by those words. But for him, there was nothing more to explain. He didn't seek their approval, and the decision he made was a reflection of the only time in his life when he truly experienced love for others without interest, without lies, without arrogance, without deception. The lawyer completed all the necessary paperwork, somewhat surprised, of course, and before the signature, he insisted that Vander think it over. However, the millionaire made it clear, without hesitation, that his inheritance would be given to a single person, the only person who had stayed by his side during his most vulnerable moments, the housekeeper. He specified that his fortune would be entirely handed over to her as recognition for the love and unconditional dedication she had offered him. With everything formalized, he felt an enormous relief. The weight of life seemed to lighten with that decision. He was confident that she would make good use of the money, even believing that Katerina would think the reward was undeserved. In a brief conversation with the housekeeper, he confided that he had changed his will, and that one of the most important changes was that she, Katerina, should be present at the reading of the will, leaving her confused. With a hint of nervousness, Katerina tried to refuse, stating that Mrs. Gloria would never allow her presence at such an important moment. Vander then explained that the lawyer would summon her for the reading of the will, and without her presence, such an act would not take place. Katerina then nodded, grateful for the significance he was giving her. He looked at her, smiling gently, and replied, "That's exactly why you deserve it, your humility. You are the only one who gave me something without expecting anything in return. I want you to witness the declaration of the division of each asset earned through my hard work, and I want you to see the emotions of each member of my family. They might even invite you to the grand celebration," he said ironically. In the days that followed, he found peace beside her, knowing that finally his legacy would be directed to someone with a pure heart. He felt at ease, as he knew that all the coldness of his family had been replaced by the warmth of Katerina. One Tuesday morning, after a particularly difficult night, Vander was already struggling to breathe. Katerina propped some pillows behind him to elevate his body in hopes of improving his breathing, but nothing seemed to work. His gaze appeared distant and unfocused, and Katerina knew that he was saying goodbye. Unsure of what to do, she asked for Mrs. Gloria and the children to be called. Perhaps this would be their last chance to convey some love to him. However, all of them were too busy and claimed they would make time later in the day. Trying to show strength, Katerina sat beside him, held his cold hand, kissed his forehead with love, unable to hold back her tears, and said, "Don't worry, my friend, I'm here." Vander moved his lips slightly as if offering her one last smile before he peacefully passed away, leaving Katerina in tears with an almost unbearable pain in her chest. yet with the certainty that she had stayed by his side until his last breath, and had cared for him like a true friend. The death of the millionaire struck his family like a blow. They felt a pang of remorse for not visiting Vander that morning. But the remorse quickly faded as they rationalized. Who would have known he was going to die today, right? Gloria ordered everything to be prepared for the wake, which took place in the grand hall of Vander's company headquarters. It was a lavish wake, attended by many powerful acquaintances, resembling more of an event than a funeral. Gloria and her children remained close to the coffin for almost the entire wake, in a remarkable display of suffering that truly evoked pity. Fortunately, there were some friends, as arrogant as they were, to offer condolences and support during such a difficult time. Katerina could barely approach her friend's coffin. She stayed back, merely watching the family's performance, a scene that only deepened her pain and indignation. Days after Vander's burial, the household's routine was back to normal, now with a lighter burden, as they no longer needed to interrupt their important affairs, parties, social media, empowerment meetings, for a brief visit to a corpse. Gloria got rid of everything that might remind her of Vander, pressuring the lawyer for the reading of the will. Attorney Alexandre then scheduled the will reading for the following Wednesday, exactly 15 days after Vander's death. On the appointed day, everyone was euphoric, laughing and chatting, making bets among themselves about who would inherit what. Houses, luxury cars, companies, investments, already starting to make plans for the future. When Attorney Alexander sat down in Vander's chair in the mansion's office, everyone took their seats and fell silent. Minutes passed, which felt like hours to Gloria, until she brusquely and rudely questioned the lawyer. "What are you waiting for to start the reading? We have better things to do, doctor." The lawyer then told them he was waiting for one more person to arrive, leaving the three of them surprised. Gloria's daughter asked, "Who are you waiting for?" "We're all here." Just then, someone knocked on the door, causing everyone to turn. Slowly, the door opened and Katerina entered. Luca, the son, asked Katerina, who just arrived, as if the maid were there to announce someone's arrival. Katerina replied in a barely audible voice, "No one has arrived, Mr. Luca. I'm here to participate in the reading of the will. That was your father's wish." "What? How could this be? This must be a mistake," Gloria exclaimed, almost shouting. Attorney Alexandra interjected, saying, "Now we can begin. Please take your seats and maintain silence for the start of the reading." The lawyer, with a firm and professional tone, began to read the will. The deceased left his fortune, as recognition for her services and dedication, including all his assets, properties, vehicles, investments, and companies, to his employee Katerina. The words echoed in the room, and a deafening silence fell. Incredulity took hold of the wife and children. It was as if the ground had opened up beneath them. The wife, unable to contain her anger, said, "How could he do this? We are his family. We devoted our lives to him, and now everything goes to a stranger." Emotions were running high. The lawyer tried to remain calm, explaining that the millionaire's decision was clear and irrefutable. He did not allow himself to be shaken by the explosive responses of the family, knowing that the wishes of the deceased were non-negotiable. Katerina turned pale, incredulous at what she had just heard, questioning to herself, how could this be? She found herself engulfed by a wave of emotions. In a state of shock, she struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the situation. What had begun as a simple act of kindness had turned into a legacy that would transform her forever. The weight of responsibility felt overwhelming, yet at the same time, she felt honored to have been chosen. The children, equally outraged, began to argue among themselves, each blaming the other for the lack of attention given to their father in recent years. Their anger quickly devolved into a tumult of accusations and lamentations. "Why weren't we more present?" one of them said, his voice filled with regret. But the truth was that, for a long time, they had been more concerned with the luxuries of life than with their father's well-being. The family's indignation did not dissipate easily. They felt betrayed and humiliated, even concocting a plan to contest the will. The idea that a mere housekeeper received everything they considered their rightful inheritance left them furious. However, Dr. Alexandra, the lawyer, made it clear that it would be a waste of time, especially since they now lacked the means to hire a good attorney to pursue a lawsuit. In the continuation of the will, there was still a bit of the father's generosity, as he established a timeline for them to vacate the mansion, allowing them to take their luxurious clothing, expensive watches, perfumes, handbags, shoes, and jewelry, nothing more. The following days were marked by tension and anxiety. Still very lost amidst all this newness, Katerina began to devise a plan for what she would do moving forward. Despite having witnessed the cruelty of Gloria, Luca, and Lavinia towards Mr. Vander, her principles did not allow her to leave the negligent family with nothing. She donated a franchise of a fast food chain that Vander had maintained among his businesses, a franchise that brought in good monthly income. If they could manage it, they would have a way to work and sustain themselves. After much contemplation about what to do with so much money, Katerina made an unusual decision. She didn't want to simply hand out cash to people. She wanted to empower those in vulnerable living situations to stand on their own. She hired social workers to map out the neighborhood and surrounding areas in search of homeless families. She offered these individuals a space to build their homes, where they would learn how to professionalize in the construction field while simultaneously creating their own shelters. The courses offered included masonry, masonry assistant, cooking, carpentry, contracting, among other training aimed at building their homes and ensuring the well-being of workers during construction. Katerina's goal was to professionalize these individuals and, at the same time, take them off the streets, with the hope that in the near future, they could compete in the job market and even invest in advancing their careers. Some of the conditions established were that children needed to be regularly attending school, anyone dependent on substances had to seek treatment, and after a period of 30 months living in their homes, they would contribute a percentage of the invested amount, like a housing loan for a determined period, in order to continue the project and serve more families. Katerina dedicated herself to many other projects, including care homes for the elderly, as she didn't want to witness the loneliness of more people. She launched a project for children, providing recreation, culture, and sports, occupying their time and minds to ensure they had the opportunity for a secure and prosperous future. She initiated craft projects to support small entrepreneurs, and in these endeavors, she encountered countless engaging stories and invaluable lessons. Through this journey, she initially believed she only had something to offer, but over time, she realized she had much more to receive. From every gaze, every smile of gratitude, every hug, and every restored sense of dignity. Sometimes the signs of change were so subtle: a haircut, a well-groomed beard, painted nails, and a touch of lipstick. She often reminisced fondly about her friend, Vander, who made all this possible, cherishing the laughter they shared. If you enjoyed this story or found it touching, be sure to subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, and leave a comment, letting us know if you've ever met a family like this. Speaking of family, do you think Vander's loving family is managing well with the snack business? Luca, who never had a knack for much, always enjoyed flaunting his beautiful and expensive motorcycles, is now delivering snacks and doing quite well, even receiving tips from time to time. Lavinia manages the production of the snacks, grills, sauces, and packaging, embracing her life as both a snack shop owner and a blogger, sharing her daily routine on social media. Gloria, on the other hand, focuses on managing the cash register and handling accounting, struggling to detach herself from money. Until the next story.